Genesis 38. Recall Joseph. God, the one who created everything, he has great plans for Joseph, but he has just been sold by his brothers and taken far away from where he lives to Egypt. This passage in Genesis 38, remember there are 50 chapters in the book of Genesis, so we're at 38. We're almost through the entire book of Genesis. This passage is named Judah and Tamar. Remember, Judah is one of Joseph's brothers, one of Israel or Jacob's sons. At that time, Judah left his brothers. So you have to remember, there are 12 brothers, and Joseph has just been sold because he had two dreams that made his brothers mad. And one of them, Reuben, really tried to save him. And I mentioned that Simeon and Levi or Levi are fearsome warriors. But Judah is close to those guys. I think Reuben is the oldest, and then Simeon's the second, and then Judah and Levi are, it's either Judah's the third, or let's take a look. But the oldest four are those four. Let's not take a look. Okay, let's just keep moving on. So, Judah, he stayed with a man named Adullam, and there he met Shua, a woman. So Judah married her and had a son named Er. She had another son. She had another son named Onan, and then another son named Shelah. Judah got a wife for Er, and her name was Tamar. But Er died, and Judah said to Onan, who is Er's brother, Er died, sleep with your brother's wife and fulfill your duty as a brother-in-law to her, right? Tamar. So Er and Tamar they didn't have any kids. Onan knew that the child would not be his. So whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he didn't try to have a kid. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight. So the Lord put him to death too. So Er and Onan, they both died. Then Judah said to Tamar, live as a widow until Shelah grows up. And then Shelah would sleep with her. For he thought, Shelah may die like Er and Onan. So Tamar went to live in her father's household. So she went home back to her family. After a long time, Judah's wife died. And when Judah had recovered from his grief, he went up to Timnah to the men who were shearing his sheep. And his friend Hira, the Adullamite, went with him. Tamar found out, your old father-in-law, because she left the family. Your old father-in-law is going to shear his sheep. She took off her widow's clothes and covered herself with a veil to disguise herself, and then sat down at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that, though Shelah had now grown up, she had not been given to him as his wife. So Tamar was mad because she's never going to get married, really. I mean, she was married, but it's like she's never going to get married, because her husband died. She's never going to get married. She's never going to have a child, She's upset. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute. She dressed like a prostitute. And, nowadays we have to be fair. If she was married to this guy and then, got, slept with by her brother, and then the guy saying, when my other son grows up, you could be married. Of course she feels, she feels like a prostitute. So she dressed herself as a prostitute. And she said to Judah, "Come, let me sleep with you. And what will you give me?" And Judah said, "I'll send you a young goat," because he thinks she's just a prostitute. "I'll just give you one goat." And she said, "Give me something to know you're not lying." He said, "What pledge should I give you?" She said, "I want your seal and its cord and the staff in your hand." So Judah gave them to her and slept with her because he thought she was a prostitute. He thought she was a prostitute, and she became pregnant. I guess she just became pregnant, It sounds like they planned it, but no. I think he slept with her, and later on she found out she was impregnated. So after she left, she took off her veil and put on her widow's clothes again. So Judah sent a goat to her, but he could not find her. He asked, "Where is that prostitute who I saw?" And they said, "There is no shrine prostitute." So he went back. to Judah and said, "I didn't find her." So he had people looking for her, and they went back to Judah and they couldn't find her. Remember, she just disguised herself as a prostitute and put her widow's clothes back on. "There hasn't been any prostitute around here." Then Judah said, "Let her keep what she has, or we will become a laughingstock. After all, I did send her this young goat." After 3 months, Judah was told, your old daughter-in-law is pregnant, so she's guilty of prostitution. Judah said, "Bring her here and we will burn her to death." I'm not sure it's an actual burning with fire, To burn someone is to embarrass. It might be to embarrass her. As she was being brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law, I am pregnant by the man who owns these. See if you recognize whose seal and cord and staff these are. Judah recognized them and said, she is more righteous. She is more in the right than I, since I wouldn't give her my son Shelah. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. As she was giving birth, one of them put out his hand. So the midwife took a scarlet thread, it's a red thread, and tied it on his wrist, and said, this one came out first. But when he drew back his hand, his brother came out. Came out of the womb? Oh, I guess it came out of the womb. So this is how you have broken out, the midwife said, and he was named Perez. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his wrist, came out. So Perez is older, and the younger was named Zerah. So Perez means breaking out, and Zerah means brightness. Brightness. Let's keep going to Genesis 39. Now we are back to Joseph's story. Joseph and Potiphar's wife. So Joseph was sold to Potiphar, the captain of the guard. The Lord, who is God, the Creator, he was with Joseph, so he prospered, and he lived in the house of his master. When his master saw that he always succeeded, Joseph found favor in his master's eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of the household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of Potiphar because Joseph was his attendant. He knew how to manage all of his wealth and keep everything nice. The blessing of the Lord was on everything. Potiphar had both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything in Joseph's care, with Joseph in charge. And Potiphar did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. The Bible is written for men and women. Now Joseph was buff, he's big, and he was a handsome MF. He was a handsome dude. And after a while, Potiphar's wife started to eye him, took notice of him, and in a moment of weakness said, "Come to bed with me." But Joseph refused. "With me in charge," he said, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. He entrusts everything to me. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a thing that is wicked and sin against God, his God, or what's called Elohai, No, Elohe. Elohe. Remember, Elohai is our God, and Elohe is my God. How could I do such a wicked thing? Like, how could I betray your husband and my master? And there's something called sin, and I would be sinning, and also sinning against my God. And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, she just wouldn't let it go. He refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. So he wouldn't even walk around with her. Or sometimes, she might say, can you help me with something? And then Joseph must have been like, nah. No, I know you. I can't remember your husband, my boss. No. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand. So what happened was, one day she just went nuts and grabbed his cloak, which is like a cape. I guess back then they wore clothes and then they wore another robe outside of it, and they might have a cape on top of the robe. So one day she just grabbed him, and then he was walking by maybe, and then grabbed his cape and said, "Come to bed with me." And he just didn't care, he kept walking, so she had his cape. And then when she saw she had his cape, she called household servants. She said, "Look at this. Joseph, he's making fun of me. He came to sleep with me, but I screamed. And when Joseph heard me scream, he ran away and left his cape. And here it is," she was saying. She kept his cape beside her until Potiphar came home. Then she told him this made-up story. And then Potiphar got angry and put him in prison, where the king or the Pharaoh's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was in prison, the Lord, again, that's God, the creator of everything, was with him. He didn't abandon him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor again in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those in prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. That's Genesis 39. Thank you for listening. And remember, put God first. Keep him first. He'll take you places. my morning karate to center myself. No, I'm just kidding. It's for show. It's for show. It's for show. Jesus.